Hey guys, wanted to talk to you today about First John. As you know, we as a church are going through the book together while virtually while we're at home during this strange COVID-19 thing. And it's really interesting to go through the book of First John during this time and to see how the Word of God applies to this particular situation. The Word of God has something to say to every situation. It's really interesting to see what the book of First John has to say to us during this. Two of the major themes of First John are truth and love. The theme is truth is important because he corrects false teachers and false teachings an awful lot in the book. Love is also important, as he explains in the book, that God is love and that people who are from God will love people. And if you don't love, you're not from God, John says. He has a lot to say about love. But those two concepts, truth and love, are extremely important. And so what I want to talk to you about in this very short video is truth. As Christians, we need to be people who value truth. Truth is that which corresponds to reality. And we need to be people who care about truth. And so it has always been true that I've been a person who that's been really important to me my entire life. And when email first was new, do you remember email forwards? Yeah. Well, people would forward like crazy. Forward. And you could tell when something had been forwarded 100 times because it would have all those little carrots, down next to one side. And you could tell when it was a whole bunch of forwards in a row and the text would be all off and everything. And you could tell. But it's interesting. It seemed like some people were more gullible than others as far as believing those things. It was as though some people didn't realize. I think it was for people that computers and email were maybe new, and they had grown up in an era of newspapers and books, when they didn't really realize that anybody can change the text on an email. And that when a forwarded email says something like, well, this happened to me yesterday, if the email was written 5 years ago, it's not yesterday anymore. Or if the email said, well, I saw this on Oprah, doesn't necessarily mean that it did. And it would get updated. Those email forwards, the same ones, would keep circulating. And, it would mention Phil Donahue and then Oprah and whoever happened to be on a talk show at the time. And people would just kind of edit them and keep them going. And I was the guy, one of, I'm sure, many, who would respond to friends and relatives and say, no, that isn't true, and maybe look it up. That continues to be the case with Facebook. Facebook sometimes drives me crazy, the amount of things that people put up there that aren't true. One of the things that bothers me is when I will point out, and it's hard to do because people don't really like that. And so it's difficult for me, and I'm sure that I haven't always had the best attitude, and I try to do it in the kindest way I can. But when I have corrected people or said, look, I looked up this thing that you posted, and it's just not true. People don't always respond well to that, but I keep doing it. I keep doing it because I think it's important, especially as Christians, that we make sure that we are only distributing truth. And so if you get, if you see on Facebook or any other means something, don't just assume it's true. Just because it's in print on a computer, people can type anything they want. Don't assume that the link is a real link. Check it. Make sure it's true. Just because somebody assigns a person to a quote doesn't mean they actually said it. One of the ones that has bothered me lately is this quote from Satan supposedly saying, well, I'm going to make everybody go home and lock up businesses and wreck their economy. And then Jesus responds with, yes, and I'm going to encourage people to have dinner together again. And it's a great little quote because it's about turning things positive and seeing how God works things together for good. But somewhere along the line, someone decided to attribute the quote to C.S. Lewis. He never said it. But people and Christians, well-meaning Christians, just keep resharing and sharing and resharing. And I've found that sometimes when I correct people, or I say, look, I looked it up and there's no evidence that person actually said that, or this story, though it's a great story that you've shared, it claims to be true and it's really not. So it's a neat story but didn't actually happen. One of the things that's disturbed me is sometimes I get responses from people where they'll say, well, yeah, I wasn't really sure that was true, but I just thought it was a neat story. I think we as Christians need to care more about truth than that. If something claims to be true, it better be true. And if you're not sure, I would encourage you not to share it. During this crisis, sharing truth is extremely important. For a while, we weren't really sure what to believe. We were hearing all kinds of messages, from this is the Black Plague and we're all gonna die, to it's no big deal. It's just a cold. Flu kills more. We heard both extremes, right? And now we know the truth is somewhere in the middle of that. But even now, we're hearing voices tugging us, one side or the other, and it can be hard to tell who to believe. Make sure you, as a Christian, are someone who can be believed, and it's difficult. Sometimes I've passed on information that turned out to not totally be accurate, and it still happens. But I think that we need to continue to try and be as diligent as we possibly can to share truth so that people know that they can trust us, so that when we tell them the truth about Jesus, they'll know we're a trustworthy source. So I would just encourage you to be very careful and to care about whether things are true or not. We're going to have to be people who think carefully about the messages that we receive and the messages we point out to others, which is actually John's point in his in his letter that you'll see as we go on. Anyway, that's all from now. I'll be sharing more lessons from 1 John with you later. Hope you enjoyed this video and have a great day.